Not Gladiators out of first. We'll see. Take it away.
So far, things definitely looking good for Toronto, and we're going to be heading in here to the Shrine, and Nero going to be here on the Sombra to start things out.
Yeah, I almost thought this was actually going to be Village, because we do have the triple tank composition coming out from Mayhem, and Mikey A over onto the Reaper now. Dalton trying his best with that Tracer to pick apart this squad, but Paintbrush is dropping low. He's got to be careful now. We do have the aggression coming out from the Mayhem tank line, but it's going to be Guardian who gets punished.
Well, Nero got punished really bad early on, couldn't stay in the fight, and that gave him a window for Mayhem to just overpower Toronto Esports. You need a little bit more out of your Sombra than what happened here, and hey, Mikey and the Reaper, not something you see very often, but working out and keeping Toronto back. You have the early Coalescence out from more, and just look at how far back it's pushed Toronto, where they're not able to contest, and Mayhem easily gets first control.
So now Mayhem, because there wasn't actually that much damage going across, it was just them soaking up a lot of damage and then able to convert with Mikey A onto these kills. They weren't able to build too many ultimates, but getting that kill onto Cruz is going to go ahead and stall out the Toronto squad.
Well, I think Cruz is just being a little bit aggro, trying to build up a little bit more sound barrier, and you got punished for it. Sometimes you get hooked in, and that's that.
So the swap out's coming as Nero goes over the Genji. It's going to be Cruz now going over to the Zenyatta. That Orb of Discord is going to be very important in trying to deal with the triple tank of Mayhem.
And Dalton coming around the backside, looking in for Toronto. Pulse Bomb connects to the back, and Za didn't have his shield, not able to stay alive. A nice pickup coming in from Dalton early on, and you see the barrier coming in from Mayhem to try and compensate. They had to deal with one person being down. More, already low, we get the Colossus out. No, Nero finishes him off into the back, and this is enough for Toronto Esports. The flanking power of Dalton Nero rearing its head once more.
Yeah, this is just how good they are at dive for Toronto, as they just instantly swap off and take a look. Nero, who had just swapped off, he's already got his blade. Cruz himself having swapped, he's now at 55% towards his Transcendence, but it's gonna come down to Mayhem more. I'm sorry, but a Coalescence isn't enough to try and heal up the Genji blade, but maybe Mikey A can try and dissuade it with the Death Blossom.
Well, the big part here is the Graviton. If Za's able to land a Graviton, Moore can combo it in with the Coalescence. Is one of the better ways to get value out of a Coalescence, so it's all about Za. Is Za going to be able to land a good Graviton? Is it going to get eaten by Guardian? That's who I want to see here as Mayhem Academy leads the way in. Where is Za? Does he have a setup for the Graviton? They're already down Krems. He throws the Graviton, but it doesn't get too much into it. They're not able to set the Coalescence. Mayhem Academy push back, and they wait too long to pull the trigger there. Now Toronto going in even deeper. Transcendence giving the life, and Mikey on the counter. The Death Blossom takes down 2, now 3. They weren't able to kill enough in the times they had that Transcendence, and Mikey pulls it back.
It was a great setup by Moopy. He goes in with that Earth Shatter, lays them on their back, and of course the follow-up is there for Mikey A, and so Mayhem Academy will flip this back on over. It's at 60% now, real back and forth between the two teams. Nero has the blade, build up another blade here, but Shu, be his Coalescence going into this next fight.
Mikey is literally the one-man chapter of the British Hurricane here in NA Contenders, because what more do you call that spinning from a Reaper? Either way, Dalton coming back, looking for Zod once more. Pulse Bomb not going to get in this time. Dalton still pressing from the back, the barrier keeping Mayhem alive and in the moment. Now they got Coalescence, no, the bomb in the back! Down goes Moore, no Coalescence in sight, and Guardian has brought this back for Toronto.
You don't want to rely upon a self-destruct like that, but you'll take it. So with the 2-man coming out from Guardian and a follow-up on the 3rd, that's going to allow Toronto to flip this back, but now it is Mayhem. They've got 95%. They just need one team fight win. We'll see. Their tanks pretty far from their ultimates right now. Zaw sitting at 48%. It's going to be Moopy, who's getting very close to that Earth Shatter. We'll see if they can build that up again, get that Earth Shatter Death Blossom combo off once again.
This probably has to be a sacrifice fight for Mayhem, where they don't really have a lot of tools. Maybe if they get an early pickup, they make it work, but it's going to be a sacrifice in Nero, no likelihood. Laid out from Nero early on, slices through Moore on the back end, sets up Dalton, and it's a clean sweep for Toronto, as to be expected. The problem for Mayhem is they didn't get much off of this. They don't even have a Graviton for the next fight. They died too soon. It's going to be down to an Earth Shatter.
We'll see. Mikey A, he's at 70% right now, and so the damage mitigation right now coming out from Guardy is just too much for Mikey A to try and really do anything, and especially because of the dive composition. Right, they're so mobile, it's hard for them to pin anyone down. Moopy pushes forward. He's got the Earth Shatter ready. We're at 99 to 99.
Everything rides on his hammer here. He needs to open up with a good shatter, buy some time for the rest of his team. So far, doesn't like what he sees. Drops the hammer, knocks down 2. That could have been good enough. Mikey, off the flip side. Death Blossom, countered by the Transcendence. Cruz got the Storm Warning in the moment. Mayhem Academy, though, still has a decent setup. Both flanking DPS are down. Guardians D-Max, and it's enough. Transcendence or no, Mayhem Academy's gonna bring this back, and it's at 95%. So when they get this here, I'm not even sure Toronto can even get back onto the point.
Yeah, they're gonna try though. They jump on in. Axiom gets booped away. Overtime taking away. He's got the Primal Rage as he jumps on in. Coalescence gonna be used now by Moore to keep his tanks topped off. But Za, it's him. He's looking for the Graviton Surge, but they're doing a good job. Oh, it caught onto Axiom.
And the Graviton in late, going to pin people to the wall, giving Mayhem Academy the edge. 3-1 in their edge. Nero swings the blade, grabs 2, in fact, leads the way. Cruz becoming his inner DPS once more. A nice deflection from Nero, keeping it alive. Mikey, one of the last few on the point, still in the moment, but Cruz and Dalton bring it on back. Toronto Esports doing the unthinkable here. Not only did they get back in time, but they take the round.
Wow, what a back and forth exchange. Toronto just riding the line there, very nearly losing this point, but they're able to get there. The Primal Rage stalled out long enough, and of course, even as you had mentioned, Cruz coming in with that Soldier 76, the mobility along with the extra damage was able to tip the scales in their favor. And so, as we swap off onto Village, this is where we are more used to seeing now that triple tank composition. Toronto, though, they're gonna match it themselves on their end.
And both teams getting dark and edgy with it here. Reaper showing up on both ends. Not a surprise given what we've seen earlier in the day.
Yep, difference in compositions though, as we have Za on the Zarya and it's Guardian on the Diva. So damage mitigation just in different forms coming out from both sides now. Taking a look, Mayhem, they want to go straight for that power position inside by the Mini. Both teams about to face off in a head-on collision.
And the Zarya gives a slight power boost early on, but I do think Guardian's gonna be able to swing this the other way for Toronto Esports. How they go, but Axiom almost falls. He got chunked, but the fall through wasn't there. He gets a second lease on life. Hook is in onto Guardian, but Guardian gets away. Krem's gonna get isolated back out of the fight. Toronto with the opportunity to come back in. Early Coalescence in from Shu. Built it super early. Energy beams on both ends. This is an anime, it's Overwatch as Toronto moves our way in.
Yeah, and it wasn't just an early Coalescence. There was also an early Earth Shatter out from Moopy, but he wasn't able to get anything with it as it went straight into Axiom's shield there. Actually, even using an Earth Shatter himself. And so that's what happens when Triple Tank go toe-to-toe against Triple Tank. A lot of ultimates come online real quickly, and they get used. But now it's Toronto coming out in the lead. Dalton is, of course, going to have that whole hog ready as Mayhem Academy, they push in from the high ground.
Mayhem Academy coming in from the left. One big note here, though, is that Shu way far ahead on his Colossus because he lived to tell the tale of the last fight. Meanwhile, Mayhem Academy pushing their way in. Nice hook early on the Guardian, but can they finish it? No, they let Guardian off the hook again, able to get out of the fight. Meanwhile, Shu, 92-93. As soon as he hits Coalescence, he's going to let this beam fly, and now Toronto. They're in a great position to counterattack. They're waiting. Early barrier coming in, matched by a barrier on the other side. There's a Coalescence, but the Graviton in from the Academy groups things up, and they're not quite able to finish it the way they want. Nero responds with the Death Blossom on the other end. It's 2 for 2 here in the point. Nero looking the other way, and Toronto Esports once more just ahead of the chaos.
Yeah, against that extra damage mitigation coming out from Toronto does help them out with Guardian using that defense matrix, eating up a lot of the whole hog coming up from Krems. Just weren't able to do anything, and take a look at that great staggered kill onto Za now. So Toronto just 30 short percentage away from walking away with this first map.
And one thing that's really worth noting is that they've hooked in Guardian multiple times, but he doesn't seem to care. He gets away with his mech every single time.
And he does. I mean, it's that slight moment. You have that window after getting hooked of being able to get the defense matrix up. You need everyone else to focus out Guardian. If they could have gone to D-Mech, this could be a completely different story. Moopy pushes forward. He's got the Earth Shatter.
Can he drop the hammer? Oh, he does! Knocks down 2. But Mikey, unable to get directly in, is pushed back. Only picks up Nero, and yet that still could be enough from Mayhem Academy. Working on the outskirts, and oh my goodness, it's flanking Coalescence from Shu, melts down more from the back end, and Za has to try and bring it back with emergency Graviton, but the fall through not there. Paintbrush splattered against the wall. That's a different type of paint entirely, as Axiom just gonna swing the hammer to clear things out.
Overtime ticks away, and Toronto are gonna walk away with a 2-0 victory here on Nepal.
Oh my word.
So one of the things that we had talked about beforehand was Mayhem having kind of a shaky support line. It's not necessarily one that we could rely on. one of the main factors of that was Paintbrush's Mercy. Now, we saw Paintbrush switch to Lucio for this. Did you see any improvement with that?
There was a moment where I believe it was on the first point on Shrine where it looked like he might have gone down early. Somehow, it's Lucio. He's a slippery frog. He's going to be able to make it away. But the positioning there did leave me worried. But for the most part, it wasn't the worst, especially because you are playing in the triple tank composition. When you play the triple tank composition, as we saw on Village, it's much easier to stay alive as the supports just because everyone's clumped up. The massive armies are meeting in the center point while the supports are right there. It's very difficult to try and get onto them.
Yeah, and you saw, I mean, like Mikey A was doing everything he could to try and turn this back around. ZP, why don't you talk to us a little bit about how this happened, this valiant effort?
Look, Mikey is a fantastic hit scan player. I think at times people forget this because he's found himself in situations where he has to play with just ungodly ping and a bad setup, but he made Reaper work in a way that few Reapers have, especially on the first point. And then, it was a joke in the middle of the moment, but look, that was a British hurricane coming through from the Atlantic. So really good job for Mikey there. Unfortunately, overall, just wasn't able to go through an entire game. I think a lot of that, though, had to do with Guardian on the other side.
Well, Guardian and Dalton. So we've got some footage here. This is Dalton on Tracer, just relegating people.
I mean, that was a great pulse bomb. He almost actually got, I believe, more with it too, but he was able to just fade away. So it would have been a two-man pulse bomb if it weren't for that ability. But yeah, Dalton, once they swapped off onto this dive, Toronto, they just looked better in form. This is their bread and butter. They can run the triple tank, but once you put Dalton, of course, on the Tracer and then Nero on the Genji, they just look so far superior. Yeah,
and even though Nero wasn't necessarily putting up huge highlight reels, Nero is remarkably consistent, where there was very few points there where you looked at Nero and said, wow, this guy's not doing anything. He's still very good even when he's not at his very best. So Toronto on all ends had contribution from most of their players here. Again, though, I'd just point to the idea that Guardian just able to get away from hooks over and over again was probably a definitive factor, at least on the second round.
All right, let's go ahead and head into map selection. We'll be visiting Nimbani. Is this the first time we've seen Nimbani today? I think so.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right, well, here we are. First time in Nimbani this week. What do you guys expect to see coming out of teams here?
I think both these teams are going to play this pretty standard. I don't think we have a Torbjorn alert. If this was, a warning system for Torbjorn, I'd give it the lowest warning. We're probably not going to see hammer wielding action here. I don't think either team has any reason to play anything but standard. And knowing how these teams have played, I'm not even sure we're going to see something like a little bit, not off the meta, but off standard like a Pharah. I just think it could just be dive v dive with maybe a Widow in play.
Yeah, I would like to see mostly dive v dive, but we have seen Za in the past try to go for the Pharah on the offense here on Numbani to mixed results, but definitely looked better when they go for the Genji dive instead. So I want to see that. I want to see actually how Toronto run their defense here, if they're going to go for the Soldier 76 or if they just go for full all-out dive, because either of those options are very potent on point A defense.
So we've seen a lot from kind of across the board, not just with this team, but in all the teams, the synergy between support tank and DPS. How do you see that? We've seen a lot of Krem's amazing support that we've been seeing. We've also seen, like you were mentioning, Guardian. Who do you feel has the superior kind of team spirit between these two teams?
Well, right now, Krems is just having a difficult time trying to keep his support line alive with the Diva. Right now, Guardian is definitely winning out in that regard when they're trying to keep the supports alive. Just Guardian's defense matrix timings have been absolutely stellar throughout most of the weeks, and we're already seeing great hints of it there on Nepal.
Alrighty, well, we are going to roll into game now and see if we can keep this momentum going for Toronto. Here we go, Nepal.
On to Numbani we go, the mean streets of Numbani as it were. And coming in from the defense of Toronto Esports, they're going to be running this Widow Junkrat defense, and this is pretty standard at times where you see the Junkrat hold on one side and the Widow way in the back. Choose your poison.
Yeah, this is actually a very Contenders-heavy kind of composition. We see it in Contenders Korea, EU, and now it's making its way over to North America. Mikey instantly goes to the point, try and draw people away. They do have the contest. It's going to be Guardian there. We'll see if Mikey A can try and get this D-Mech, but now the rest of the members are trying to focus him down.
They've given up a lot of room already in the Academy, but there's what they're looking for. Dalton got more early on. They don't have that healing to rely on, and now Toronto can just easily roll back in the point. And Za was already done. He was done before the rest of his team is done. He's like, back it up.
Yeah, that Far is really not going to work out, especially in the face of that Widowmaker. Za hasn't swapped off yet, but there it is. With Paintbrush going over to Lucio and Za now onto the Genji. They're going full dive. The only thing that worries me here is that Moira is still on the Moira. And really what you want is, of course, a Zenyatta. You want that Discord Orb so that the time to kill is much lower. We'll see, though, how effective this dive is coming out for Mayhem.
What they want to do, they just want to get on the point and then use this back alley to just be secured wherever they go, where they're trying to maximize Moira contribution, but they're taking a very long approach here, and it's almost kind of reminiscent of Lock and Load just taking so long to set up. They're applying a lot to this here, but it's just not quite great. But they caught Nero on the flip side. That might be enough. More, though, falling makes us a little bit more in contest because it is equidistant between attackers and defenders here. You can't beat down a defense through attrition.
And with Shu taking out Paintbrush, Mayhem Academy's push should be shut down. Mikey A just falling back now, and he's not going to be able to take out, of course, a pocketed target of any sort. So he falls there. Mayhem Academy already having spent about a minute and 45 seconds. They got some good ultimates. It's going to be Mikey A. He was able to get that first kill when he came in with the flank on to Nero. We'll see. This time he's got a pulse bomb.
Pulse bomb up for Mikey, and of course, this is something you've been able to rely on from Mayhem Academy to catch teams off guard, where Mikey has been remarkably consistent with his pulse bombs. But what you're seeing here is Mayhem Academy just waiting a long time to go in, waiting for the setup. Now we'll see if the waiting pays out. They went for Guardian early on, but they're not able to finish him off. Self-destruct even deeper, and Krems actually falls really on Nero. Tyre chasing the attackers, down goes Moore, and Mayhem Academy just read pretty easily by Toronto Esports.
Yeah, and the res is going to be there to bring Dalton back into this now, so the defense almost full man as Axiom has just fallen, but still they will be able to dissuade them. Now it's down to a minute and 25 seconds. Mayhem Academy, they're having difficulty because of the swap offs that are made. They're getting these late ultimates. Moore is still on this Moira. I want to see if he swaps off now. Za, he's got the blade. He needs just a little bit of extra help. We'll see if they go for it. No, they're not going to swap.
Well, you bring a good point in regards to the Moira, where I think the lifespan of the Moira should have been swapped quite a bit ago. They don't have something like Transcends to help them secure the point in the situation, and now Mayhem Academy wasting a lot of time on the setup once more. They want to give Za a good opening. Moore under pressure early on, just barely able to shake it. Meanwhile, Dalton in the back gets Za, takes him out of the blade. A wonderful shot by Dalton. And even though Mupi is pressuring him in the back, you see Toronto able to get back onto the point. They haven't even given up a tick, and Krem's just running for dear life in the backline as Paintbrush is once more dipped in death.
And now Mayhem just are on the verge of getting full held here. It's coming down to this last push, and the tools are almost gone. They've got the sound barrier and a self-destruct, but you don't want to rely upon a self-destruct to try and get the take. Dalton, though, on the opposite end, as this Widowmaker, it just takes one shot. If you can take out Paintbrush, if you can take out Za or Mikey A, that would be huge for Toronto on the defense.
The issue for Mayhem here is that they don't have a lot of win conditions. Win condition, I guess, is Krems kills 2-3 people with self-destruct. The issue is that Toronto, they have a Tyre. Nero, gonna let it rip. Early Tyre in the play. You see the self-destruct over the top of the barrier. Mayhem Academy doesn't get anything with it early on. Meanwhile, Tyre's still a thing. Well, not anymore. Tyre doesn't get anything, but it does mess with the positioning of Mayhem early on. Mayhem has used everything they're going to have here. Toronto gets the flood onto the point the other way. Now they have the Transcendence. Shu picks up mid-fight. Mikey's out. And they can just transcend the victory here to finish things off if they even feel it necessary.
And now we do have the Coalescence out for Moore, but he doesn't have the takey bodies really to try and keep alive. He's out of LOS. Krems is going to get demeched, and no one's on the point. And so Toronto will get the full hold up against Mayhem Academy.
Mayhem Academy just unable to get things going, and once more you kind of saw the situation where they were waiting so long on attacks where they didn't quite know how they want to engage, and it took them a while to finally decide, yeah, let's go in. And in that time, Toronto was able to find pickoffs from Dalton, able to let Nero come in and flank. It just, across the board, it didn't look solid for Mayhem Academy. And now just to make this a draw, to keep things alive in the series, well, they need to have a full hold without giving up a tick. That's not usually the greatest position to be in.
Definitely not, and especially right now with Toronto sitting on, of course, the dive composition. This is just their bread and butter. All they need is 1-2 quick kills, and then they can go ahead and rotate back to the point because, of course, all the pressure they can apply. 1/3, that's all they need, and they got 4 minutes to do it.
4 minutes left, and really this is Toronto's to win in this case. I mean, it would be momentous if Mayhem Academy was able to hold them back, but you don't see full holds on the Bonnie that often. It is a rare outcome, and a double full hold even rarer still. So just playing by the odds, Toronto is probably working at well over a 99% win rate for teams in this situation. However, that just means it'd be all the more momentous if Mayhem Academy was able to hold here, so let's not count them out just yet.
Mayhem Academy going for a bit more traditional approach to their defense, but Paintbrush on the Ana, they do have to be careful. She is very, immobile. She can be very vulnerable to a dive, and so we'll see how they take this approach when the dive comes out from Toronto. Are they going to try and go back into the Snake Hall, or will they just drop back into main? It's very important to see how Mayhem approached this on the defense.
I think for the attack, I think that's very likely Paintbrush just dies immediately because he's been playing so much Mercy relative to other supports that I'm not sure he has the sense to stay alive on Ana here.
We'll see. Now, the dive is just positioning itself. This is just the regular vanilla dive coming out from Toronto here. A little bit of a different approach as both supports now are on the high ground with Dalton, making sure he's able to establish this. They have forced him onto the low ground. Now they're applying pressure onto the point.
They're controlling a lot of space right now. And Moopy, he doesn't have another leap to get out of here. He's just getting focused down and narrow out of the skies, drops down, hits the melee. 2 quick picks here from Toronto. Down goes Paintbrush in the back, and oh my God, dash resets in from narrow, cleaning it up nice and easy. Blink and you miss the attack as Toronto easily takes the bottom.
We saw a lot of kind of uncoordinated assaults from Mayhem there. Where do you see them needing to tighten up?
Well, they need to make a decision, right? If they're going to go for that full dive, you kind of do need the Zenyatta there. The Orb of Discord, it helps immensely when you're trying to dive onto a target because, well, it's a visual note for your team, right? Oh, I see the orb. That's the person I should be focusing down. But also, of course, the TTK is much lower when you have that damage amplification onto that target. And so I feel like more sticking with the Moira was definitely a point where they shouldn't have stuck on it for so long.
Well, to be clear, I think they forgot what the win condition for Moira is, which is that you get on the point, you use the back alleyway to heal people up, and you get the advantage of the clumped up healing at the same time. And a lot of their push-ins, they weren't even doing that. They're trying to dive on Dalton in the back or deal with people on the outskirts. That's not how that composition is run. The goal is that people have to move to you, not you moving to them, because they put Moira in a situation where she's not being anywhere near as effective.
Yep. And, they didn't make it easy for him. Dalton and Nero both just going to town.
Yeah, also, we were talking about the flex tank role here, and I think, Guardian just had a better understanding of how to play the Diva up in this composition, really counter diving up against what they were doing, while there on the defense, you saw she was trying to go toe-to-toe up against, Krebs was trying to go toe-to-toe up against Guardian. You don't want to take that exchange, especially when your supports are dying behind you.
Was there anything that you saw that could have been a turning point for Mayhem that they didn't take advantage of?
Not really in the course of it. I thought we were seeing very, very solid play coming out from the defense in that situation. I just think Mayhem, they did not have a clear vision of how their attack was supposed to go. They certainly gave Dalton a lot of room, but even when they tried to dive in on Dalton, the composition which they were diving in was not really well suited for it. It just felt like their loss here came from multiple factors, not just individual play, but also just basic strategy coming in.
Yeah, I mean, there might have been a tipping point when they did have the blade, but again, that was a moment where you want some orbs behind it, especially for a Genji. He needs extra healing, and the Moira doesn't provide that because of the range that she has to heal from. So they need an orb on him. They need either a Mercy to pocket him. I mean, we see teams do that from time where they just pocket their Genji because they know that Genji can carry, and maybe sometimes you need to put that kind of faith into Za.
Alrighty, well, we are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to see if they can keep up this pressure. Hopefully we can. Otherwise, we're going to see a very upset game of Toronto here. So Toronto v Mayhem coming back just a minute. Stick around.